Okay, for this video we're going to focus on all three of these players, okay? Because ideally these players are interchangeable, dependent on the game situation, dependent on the weaknesses of the opposition, dependent on whether our fullbacks are flying and supporting or whether they're a bit restricted and not getting up to support. And during the course of the game, it may well be that we ask these players to switch positions based on what we're viewing in position from the sideline. So essentially we've got a number 10 or a player who plays in behind the striker. We've got a left forward and a right forward. Now let's have a look defensively first of all. I'm not going to talk too much about the defence, but when we're under pressure, we've got basically two key jobs. Again, ignore the initials on these players, but let's say this is their back four. Some teams will play a back three. Between the four forward players of our team, there should never be a situation where one of their players is allowed to travel beyond the halfway line. Okay, that simple. So the four players who are the forward four players, they have a responsibility of preventing people travelling with the ball over those positions. So that sometimes means that you might need to drop back and help out the fullback. Sometimes means you might need to go and put pressure on the left back. It sometimes means that you might need to just adopt a space to prevent balls travelling through. But if players are coming out of the opposition half with loads of comfort on the ball, then a big responsibility for that is you four up front. Now, I'm not sure that anybody in our team is going to be able to do as much running as I want you to in this job, and that's both off the ball and on the ball. And as a result, we've got 6, maybe even 7 players who can play in these positions. And I wouldn't expect any of you, although that might happen, depending on how you're looking in terms of your fitness, I wouldn't expect any of you to be able to play the full game at the breakneck speed. But we've got options where we can swap and change. And it may well be that sometimes we have a player who might actually drop back into the central midfield place if he's done a decent job in these really hard forward positions. Now, the beauty of being a forward player is you get the glory. You often score the goals, create the chances, but there's a real job to do up front as a team to prevent their defence being able to start the play. And it's led from you, really. So, for an example, if the ball comes over to the right back, I never want to be in a position where I see one player closing down and everybody else stands off, which allows an easy ball into the central midfielder and turn. So whenever we decide to go, and that'll be based on experience and watching the game and seeing what's happening, but whenever we decide to put pressure on, so for instance, if the ball comes across and it's a bad touch and we decide to squeeze, I want the entire team of forward players to squeeze that play to prevent them coming out. And that's a really hard job, because if they do get out of it and knock the ball into this position, then there's a 20-30 yard sprint for players in order to go and work that area of the pitch again. So defensively, we work as a pack of 4, hunting the ball down, but not hunting it alone. If we hunt it alone, we just get out of position. That'll impact everybody else. Okay, so you 4 guys up front are going to learn about your positional responsibility when the opposition has the ball. Okay, now from an attacking point of view, we're just looking at these 3 players first. From an attacking point of view, wherever we have the ball at any given time, we need at least 2 options for the ball to be played. Okay, and those 2 options will always be in that half of the pitch. So if we've got Charlie Kelleher or Joe on the ball down here at left back, when the central midfielder and the central defender's looking for passes, we also have options from the forward players looking to receive the ball and bring people into the game. So it's not good enough for the work not to be done, where people have attacked down the right over here, their team switch the play, we win it back, and you're still over in these positions. So as soon as we're watching the game in reverse and we're seeing the opposition attack, okay, we're actually thinking about when it breaks down, how quickly will we be able to give our team options to shift and move that ball nice and quickly. Okay. Now, that means sometimes covering each other. So if the right forward has knocked it into the forward and made a run off him, it might mean then that the central forward sees that, is not involved in that attack, and then actually is doing the donkey work to get out here in case their team look to break. And between the four of you, and of course with support from your fullbacks and the central midfielders, we should be able to prevent most teams getting beyond the halfway line at least 50% of the time. All right, and the higher we can increase that percentage, the better we are going to be as a front four or front six in terms of our effectiveness, because teams will hate to play against a group of lads working so hard for each other that they can't even get out of their own half. And that's where mistakes happen and people try and do too many things defensively, and that's where we can capitalise as a team. Okay, so first job, work as a team defensively. Second job, and probably most important job, is to constantly provide options for the man on the ball. I can project my voice quite well. You will hear it a lot if, for instance, Cody or Dan Tom's got the ball at right back and they're looking for a pass, and I'm seeing this sort of situation and nobody actually making a run to get into a new space and demanding the ball off the player. Okay, it's your runs and your movement which influences how quick that ball is passed and shifted along to people. Okay, so we need to constantly be showing for the ball. There are some other jobs as well, in the sense that you've got to make decisions during the course of the flow of the game of where the opposition's weakness are. And sometimes you'll hear the call from the touchline to create some width, and at those situations you're going to be not only responsible for creating a pass out wide, but for that option to then produce something. And that could be a nice cross into the box. It could be looking to isolate this player and get into nice positions for crosses. Okay, it could be linking up with the striker and making runs in beyond to get in your own chances. You've got to start weighing up those options so that you're not on the pitch for 40 minutes having 7 or 8 touches of the ball, but you're on the pitch for 40 minutes creating chances, having impact, doing the things that you're fully capable of doing, but perhaps sometimes feel a bit worried about giving it a go. And one of the beauties that the front four have got this year is you've got a strong 6 behind you that you can afford to make the odd mistake. You can afford to risk it and try things that you might think come off in match situations that might unlock defences. We know we've got some options to score goals, but actually the goals were coming from one main source last year, although of course we were releasing Joel to score a number of goals, and that's still going to be a major threat for us, but we want to contribute more and more goals from these positions. Okay. Now, of course, one of the choices you've got to make is run with the ball or pass the ball. And there would be nothing wrong with a player who's constantly linking up play. Okay, always happy to have the ball, always happy to keep the ball moving in and between players. I'm perfectly happy for the role that you play to be different depending on your skills and your attributes. And there's been nothing wrong with a player who feels that when they pick up the ball can run and commit defenders and try and beat them. It's about making those choices and when you make those choices. So essentially there's 2 roles there. There's contribute goals and create goals, but also try and score goals yourself. and that doesn't mean being greedy. It means about getting yourself in positions where we've got more than one threat going forward. We want 3 and 4 threats going forward every time we pick up the ball and look to play. Okay, so it's going to be really interesting to see who decides to go and grasp those roles, and it's a highly competitive environment for trying to get into one of those spaces when we've perhaps got, as I say, 5, maybe even 6 players who could operate in a role behind the striker. Next position I'm going to talk about is the striker. The striker's job is going to have a fairly straightforward job. It's to make runs across the back four, but not into these wide positions, but to make runs across the back four here, looking to link up play in the first instance, and then in that second phase, once that play has been linked up and the ball has come into feet, to make runs in behind. There will be at all points in time 3 players in these positions who can release good passes for that striker. And when that striker is released, of course, that's the trigger for flat out sprints to go and support the striker, taking shots in and around goal and looking to link up play in and around goal. We're not going to be in a situation where this player looks up, he has possession of the ball, he looks for the cross, and then everybody stands still and hopes that this player is going to score. We got caught too many times like that last year in really good attacking situations, but with a bit of laziness from the players behind. So when this player is looking for the pass now, yes, we might see a run in behind this centre-back, but we're also going to see a run from the next player so that the man on the ball has 2 options. He's got that pass, he's also got that pass. He might also have this pass, and in there, 4 players running on and looking to score goals. Okay, so it's a pretty enjoyable position to play in, I'm sure, but it's also a position to play in that you might find yourself being swapped for somebody else who's going to have impact on the game. Those 3 positions in particular are looking to have direct impact from an attacking point of view on the game. And everybody who plays in those positions will be capable. Whether or not they choose to fully exploit their opportunities is going to be down to them. It's going to be down to their fitness. It's going to be down to their determination to have the impact. Now, of course, one of the roles of these players, which again I don't think we did as well as we could last year, is once we do get the ball into attacking positions, if there's nothing immediately on, is to be able to keep the ball. And the reason for that is that when there's 4 players in relatively central areas, even though we've got options left and right, then there's going to be space because fullbacks are going to be drawn in quite narrowly to pick up the opposition. And that's when, if you can keep the ball between you and the central midfielder and link up the play, then we're talking maybe for 5 seconds, that's enough for fullbacks either left or right to actually get into the play and actually become fifth and sixth options for crossing, for taking shots, for gambling a little bit and giving us that width in attack that we might miss if we were not to play standard right wingers and left wingers, which I don't necessarily think will suit us as a team. So it's a quite complex position. It's going to require good first touches. It's going to require the belief in you being able to play intricate passes. We're quite a small strike force if we think of Joel and Ellis and Ollie Gurney and Ben and Sammy, and we're actually quite small as a forward unit there, and as a result your agility and your touch and your skill and your pace, they're the things that are going to unlock the team rather than a hopeful boot forward. However, having said that, that's not to say with the pace we have, particularly with Ollie and Joel, that's not to say that we don't have the option sometimes from these positions, from these positions to actually unlock nice and early. And even if that doesn't result in goals, what it will result in is the defensive unit just being a bit scared of that and dropping back. And that's what gives the time for a little bit more intricate and relaxed play when we have possession. So to sum all that up, I'm looking for those front four to keep the ball in the opposition's half, to work as attacking force, to encourage your central midfielders to be able to push on, to encourage your fullbacks to be able to push on. And if there was one thing that didn't disappoint me, but if there's one thing that we could massively improve from last year, it was when the ball went into the opposition's half, it came back into our half within 5 seconds. And we need to be able to keep the ball in the opposition's half. And everything we're doing fitness-wise and everything that we'll do touch-wise has got that end to it where we say, yes, we can keep the ball and manoeuvre it and overlap and cause the opposition problems, not just, I guess, relying on our strength and power from the back through the team, just booting the ball and chasing it down. That's not attractive football, and we're going to be better than that.